all about white people going around. You mentioned the instance of the Tahitians taking the gospel to Hawaii, and then missionaries showing up, and there's already a missions presence, which I thought that was awesome.
Yeah.
Seeing that kind of that, as Alan Ye calls it, that polycentric. It's everyone everywhere sharing the gospel, going back and forth. You also mentioned, if I remember correctly, of an Egyptian man who was going into Asia sharing the gospel as a medical doctor.
Yeah. Medical doctor.
I thought that was really phenomenal. I love the fact that you put it in time, and you brought out this hope aspect, but you also brought out the cruciform nature, which I thought was a nice response to I think you called it the innovation and the pragmatic addiction that we have right now, where that's all it's about. And you're saying, no, we have to get back to the cruciform nature to understand suffering is part and parcel of what it means to be a Christian. It's not all about the technique that's going to solve your church problems to attract it. We have to disciple and catechize our people so that they might understand this role of suffering. Why is it so important to include that cruciform nature to our work? Why do pastors need to bring that back, and Christian leaders, and really focus on that?
Well, first of all, it's biblical. You can't get much more biblical than that the gospel, it will spread through our participation in the suffering Christ. And I say the suffering Christ because at the end of Luke, there's a reflection where Luke says, was it not necessary that the Messiah should first suffer and then be glorified? And the subtitle of my mission book is Participation in Suffering and Glory. So I've been on this theme for about 20 years, and I think it needs to be recovered, that the cruciform apostolicity might sound like an awkward expression, but it's a good reminder that the church and individuals in the church are invited to participate in this cruciform apostolicity. In other words, we conquer through emptiness. We win through humility, not by taking up arms, but by denying ourselves. And it's counterintuitive, but it's so biblical. We are the vessels. Then if we are emptied, we can be poured in with God's Holy Spirit. But if we're full, meaning full of ourselves, the work that we do is shallow, hollow, and it won't last. And so we seek to bring about genuine transformation through our own emptiness. I cannot tell you the number of people when I talk about this. Well, here's an example. When I did my mission book, before it even came out, an African who worked at Fuller asked me if he could have lunch with me. I'd never met him before. And he says, oh, this is a very good book. Africans will love it. I said, it's not even out yet. What do you mean they'll love it? Oh, just the title, Participation in Suffering and Glory. Because we know that theology, but Americans don't. We assume that we should avoid suffering. And Jesus invites us to participate in his suffering. And when we do so, the self begins to be stripped away. The way that I think about it is all kinds of stuff is encrusted around us through sin to protect us from really the raw, exposed, naked person before God with nothing to protect us. And suffering strips that away. We have nothing else. And any of us who have suffered deeply know we're at wit's end. We have nowhere to turn except to Christ for care. And that seems to be a part of his design, is not that we would avoid suffering, but when we enter into it, we enter into it with Jesus Christ.